When was the last time you stood in front of a mirror and truly faced the person staring back at you? Without distraction, without excuses, without looking away. Not the version you show the world, not the mask you wear in public, but the one who remains when the noise fades. Most people avoid that moment, not because they fear their reflection, but because they fear the truth hidden inside it. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Stoicism begins where most people refuse to look, inward. Freedom does not come from changing the world, fixing others, or earning their approval. It comes from governing your own mind, your impulses, your desires, your expectations. And there is one relationship where this mastery becomes unavoidable, the relationship with yourself. You can walk away from a lover, distance yourself from friends, or disconnect from family. But your inner partner, the voice within you, the one that whispers your doubts and records your choices, travels with you everywhere. You share every victory with it, every regret, every secret, every failure, every success. This companion cannot be escaped, outrun, ignored, or replaced. You wake up with it, you fall asleep with it, and you carry it through every moment of your life. Yet most people treat this inner partner worse than anyone else. They criticize it harshly, they pressure it relentlessly, they abandon it the moment things get difficult. Self-abandonment is one of the quiet tragedies of modern life. We demand loyalty from others while betraying ourselves in silence. We expect others to value us while treating ourselves with impatience, contempt, or neglect. We chase attention, validation, love, and acceptance from those who can never fill the void created by our own absence. Here lies a truth the Stoics understood deeply. Most of your suffering does not come from other people. It comes from your expectations of them. You expect someone to love you in a way you refuse to love yourself. You expect someone to understand you when you barely understand your own mind. You expect someone to stay when you keep walking away from your own needs. You expect someone to make you whole when you've abandoned your inner partner again and again. When those expectations are not met, and they rarely are, you feel disappointed, rejected, or unworthy. But the pain was never caused by their behavior. It was caused by your belief that your happiness depends on them. Stoicism strips away this illusion. It teaches that happiness is an inside job, a state built from discipline, clarity, and self-respect, not from applause, attention, or external approval. When your sense of worth depends on what others think, you become their prisoner. But when it comes from within, no one can threaten it. To love yourself in the Stoic way is not indulgence. It is responsibility. It is choosing not to abandon yourself, especially in difficult moments. It is standing by your inner partner with the same loyalty you wish others would offer you. It is mastering your thoughts so they serve you instead of sabotage you. It is accepting that your happiness, your peace, and your freedom will always be rooted in the only place the Stoics trusted, your own mind. The world may change, people may come and go, circumstances may rise and fall, but the relationship you have with yourself remains, the first, the last, and the most enduring connection of your life. Master it, and you become unshakable. Neglect it, and nothing else will ever feel enough. Before we go deeper, take a moment to pause. If the ideas you've heard so far resonate with you, if you're ready to master your inner world, strengthen your mind, and live with the calm discipline of a true Stoic, then make sure you follow this journey fully. Subscribe to True Stoic Way and step into a place where self-mastery isn't theory. It's a daily practice, where each lesson sharpens your clarity, strengthens your resolve, and brings you closer to the person you were meant to become. Because what comes next is the foundation of everything. If the relationship with yourself shapes your entire life, then it's time to learn how to rebuild it with strength, honesty, and unwavering respect. Now let's begin. 1. Build a loving relationship with yourself. When you begin the journey of transforming your life, there is only one place where everything must start: the relationship you build with yourself. Not the version shaped by expectations, not the identity you present to the world, but the inner self that watches your every choice, feels every hesitation, and carries every consequence. To the Stoics, this relationship is the foundation for all others, because a person who cannot govern himself cannot truly respect himself. And without respect, self-love cannot exist. Self-love in the Stoic sense is not emotional indulgence. It is the natural result of living with integrity. Everything begins with mastery over your own mind, when you guide your impulses instead of being guided by them. When you choose discipline over distraction, when you respond with reason instead of reacting with chaos, you begin to build something essential: self-respect. And once that respect appears, self-love becomes not only possible but inevitable. A person who can rely on himself, who keeps his word, who acts according to his values, naturally begins to see himself as worthy. But this kind of respect is not created by dramatic changes or grand achievements. It grows from the smallest, simplest acts, the minor disciplines that shape your identity quietly, day after day. Waking up at the time you promised, finishing the work you said you'd complete, training your body for 10 minutes when every excuse tells you not to. These actions seem small, but the mind records them with precision. Each fulfilled promise becomes evidence. I can trust myself. And each broken commitment weakens that trust a little more. Self-respect is built in silence, not performance. And yet, even those who work hard often speak to themselves with a harshness they would never direct at another human being. They insult themselves for mistakes, punish themselves for imperfection, and weaponize their own inner voice. The Stoic path rejects this entirely. You are not meant to become your own enemy. Instead, you must learn to speak to yourself the way a wise teacher speaks to a student. Firm but patient, honest but compassionate, focused always on progress rather than punishment. When your inner voice becomes a guide instead of a critic, your mind shifts from hostility to harmony. A powerful way to reshape this inner dialogue is through silence. Stoic silence is not avoidance, it is observation. When you sit with yourself without distractions, no noise, no screens, no escape, you begin to see your thoughts clearly for what they are: impressions, not truths. In this stillness, you can discern which fears are illusions, which desires are impulses, and which decisions are aligned with your values. Silence gives you the distance needed to choose your response instead of surrendering to your reactions. And in that space, clarity grows. This process of returning to yourself is at the heart of a Stoic principle called oikeiosis, the gradual alignment with your true nature. It means becoming familiar with your strengths without arrogance, recognizing your weaknesses without shame, and understanding yourself deeply enough to respond to life with wisdom rather than confusion. It is not about loving every part of yourself instantly. It is about creating inner harmony, step by step. To cultivate this harmony, try a simple Stoic exercise. Write a letter to yourself from the perspective of a wiser, calmer version of you. Someone who sees your potential clearly, someone who understands your struggles without judgment. In this letter, acknowledge how far you've come, confront the habits that hold you back, and remind yourself of the values that define the person you're becoming. When you write from this elevated perspective, your inner voice begins to shift from criticism to guidance, from condemnation to clarity. The truth is simple. Self-love in the Stoic way is something you earn through self-mastery and self-respect. You do not wait for it, you build it, you shape it, and as you do, you become someone you trust, someone you admire, someone you no longer abandon when life becomes difficult. This is the beginning of the deepest relationship you will ever have, the one with yourself. And once you build it with strength and honesty, everything else in your life begins to change. 2. Why self-love is the foundation of happiness. There is a reason the Stoics place self-love at the center of a peaceful life. Without it, happiness becomes impossible. Not because the world is cruel or because people are unreliable, but because a mind that does not value itself is a mind that will search endlessly for what it already has. And nothing is more exhausting than trying to fill an inner emptiness with things outside your control. The Stoics defined freedom, and therefore happiness, through a single principle: the dichotomy of control. Some things are within your control, some things are not, and suffering begins the moment you confuse the two. Most people spend their lives chasing outcomes that depend on the world. Attention, admiration, attraction, status, approval, certainty, or praise. They pin their emotional well-being on forces that shift like the weather. And then they wonder why their happiness is fragile. But when you love yourself, you stop anchoring your peace to unstable ground. You stop outsourcing your worth to the opinions and actions of others. You begin to realize that the only reliable source of stability is the relationship you have with your own mind. That is the essence of Stoic happiness, a grounded inner world that does not rise and fall with circumstance. Yet in the modern world, almost everyone feels a sense of lack, as if something crucial is missing. People have more comfort, more convenience, more connection than at any other point in history, yet they feel emptier than ever. They chase experiences, achievements, and affirmations, hoping each new moment will finally silence the feeling of insufficiency. But the feeling never leaves because the source is not external. It is internal. You cannot feel full when you constantly abandon yourself. The truth is that a person who does not love themselves becomes addicted to the temporary highs the world can offer. Pleasure replaces purpose. Stimulation replaces tranquility. The Stoics called this confusion one of the great traps of life, the belief that pleasure equals happiness. Pleasure is a burst of excitement that comes and goes. It depends on appetite, opportunity, and circumstance. But tranquility, what the Stoics called ataraxia, is something entirely different. It is the calmness that comes from self-command, self-respect, and alignment with your values. Pleasure excites you. Tranquility stabilizes you. Pleasure can be taken away. Tranquility cannot. If you do not love yourself, you will choose pleasure to escape your inner emptiness. You will scroll to distract your mind. You will chase relationships to distract your heart. You will fill your schedule to distract your soul. But when the noise fades, the emptiness returns, louder than before. Self-love is the only foundation strong enough to support lasting peace. One of the core Stoic skills is reframing, transforming pain into fuel. When you value yourself, hardship becomes a teacher instead of a threat. Failure becomes information instead of humiliation. Rejection becomes redirection instead of proof of unworthiness. You stop being afraid of life because life can no longer take anything essential from you. Your worth is rooted inside you, not in the things you gain or lose. With self-love, suffering doesn't disappear. It transforms. It becomes material for growth. Without self-love, however, life takes on predictable symptoms. The first is emotional dependence, relying on others to feel valuable, needed, or whole. This makes you vulnerable to manipulation, disappointment, and instability because you hand your happiness to people who cannot carry it. The second symptom is self-neglect, the quiet belief that your needs matter less than everyone else's. You drain yourself trying to earn love instead of generating it from within. The third is constant comparison. When you do not appreciate who you are, everyone else becomes a measuring stick that leaves you feeling smaller. These three patterns, dependence, neglect, comparison, signal a life built on shaky ground. A person who loves themselves breaks this cycle. They understand that happiness is not an item to acquire, but a byproduct of alignment. When your behavior reflects your values, when your actions match your standards, when your mind and your life move in the same direction, happiness arises naturally. It is not dramatic. It is not loud. It is steady, like the warmth of a sunrise. The Stoics taught that happiness begins with self-sufficiency, not isolation, but the ability to remain emotionally steady regardless of external conditions. You are not meant to be untouched by life, but you are meant to remain anchored within it. Self-love gives you that anchor. It tells you, I am enough even when the world is uncertain. I am worthy even when no one is watching. I am stable even when circumstances shift. From this place, happiness becomes less of a pursuit and more of a state of being. If you want to build this kind of freedom, begin with a simple nightly practice inspired by the Stoics. At the end of your day, ask yourself a single question. What did I control today? Write down everything you influence through your choices, your effort, your reactions, your thoughts, your behavior. This reflection trains your mind to recognize where your power actually lives. Over time, your attention shifts from what the world owes you to what you owe yourself. And that shift is the beginning of self-love. Because when you consistently direct your focus toward what is within your control, you begin to see that happiness cannot be handed to you. It is built through wisdom, discipline, and inner alignment. You stop looking outward for permission to feel whole. You stop waiting for others to validate your worth. You stop measuring your life by standards that were never yours to begin with. You become someone who stands steady in a world of uncertainty. You become someone who carries peace wherever you go. You become someone whose happiness is not borrowed, but earned. 3. Setting boundaries without guilt. There comes a point in every person's life where they must decide what they will allow into their inner world and what they will no longer accept. The Stoics understood that boundaries are not walls of fear or selfishness. They are expressions of virtue. A person who values wisdom guards their attention. A person who honors courage protects their energy. A person who respects integrity refuses to bend their values for the comfort of others. To set boundaries is simply to say, my character matters, and I will not compromise it. Yet for many, the moment they begin protecting themselves, guilt rises like a shadow. They worry about disappointing others, about seeming unkind, about being misunderstood. This guilt does not come from wrongdoing. It comes from conditioning. Most people were taught from a young age that self-sacrifice equals goodness, even when the sacrifice is unreasonable, unhealthy, or unreciprocated. They learn to associate their worth with how much they give, not how much they honor themselves. And so when they finally try to step back, the guilt is not a sign they are doing something wrong. It is a sign they are breaking an old pattern. Stoicism views guilt differently. It teaches that guilt should arise only when we violate our values, not when we protect them. When you set a boundary to preserve your peace, your integrity, or your time, you are acting in accordance with virtue, not against it. Virtue is not passive, it is active. And boundaries are one of the clearest expressions of that activity. They communicate to the world who you are and what you stand for. Kind people often struggle the most with boundaries because they misunderstand the nature of their kindness. They believe kindness means giving endlessly. But Stoicism teaches that true kindness must be guided by wisdom. If your kindness destroys your well-being, drains your energy, or allows others to disrespect you, it is no longer kindness. It is self-neglect dressed as virtue. And people can sense when someone has no boundaries. Those who are thoughtful may try to protect you, but those who are careless or self-centered may take advantage of your availability. Not because you deserve it, but because you never define the limits. This is why the Stoics emphasize the idea of being the gatekeeper of the soul. Imagine your inner world as a citadel, strong, quiet, and sacred. Not everyone deserves entry. Not every demand deserves your time. Not every conversation deserves your attention. You choose what enters, you choose what stays out, and you choose based on whether it strengthens your virtue or weakens it. Each boundary you set is a guard standing at the gate. Each boundary you neglect is a gate left unguarded. And boundaries are not only about people, they also apply to your relationship with time, emotions, and even silence. A person who does not control their time becomes a servant to the priorities of others. A person who does not guard their emotions becomes overwhelmed by the storms inside them. A person who does not protect their energy becomes exhausted long before their goals are reached. A person who does not honor their values becomes a reflection of the crowd rather than a reflection of principle. And a person who fears silence will never hear the truth within themselves. These are the 5 Stoic boundaries every person must learn to protect. The first is time. Time is more valuable than money, opportunity, or talent because it cannot be replaced. When someone asks for your time, they are asking for a portion of your life. You must learn to treat time as a sacred resource, not something to be given away carelessly. The second is emotional boundaries. You are responsible for your intentions, not the reactions of others. You do not exist to absorb the anger, insecurity, or mood swings of the people around you. You can care for someone without carrying their emotional burdens. The third is energy. Your energy is your life force, the fuel that powers your decisions, your relationships, and your ambitions. If you allow draining people or draining habits to consume your energy, you have nothing left for what truly matters. Protect your vitality as fiercely as a warrior protects his strength. The fourth is values. A Stoic never trades their principles for approval. If honoring your values creates conflict, let the conflict come. A person who loves you will respect your standards. A person who does not is not meant to stay. The fifth is silence. Silence is not emptiness, it is clarity. You do not owe explanations for every decision. You do not owe access to every part of your mind. Silence is a boundary that protects your peace and keeps your life aligned with intention rather than impulse. When you begin enforcing these boundaries, guilt may still appear. Let it rise, let it speak, and then let it pass. The guilt is simply a reminder of who you used to be, not who you are becoming. You are not responsible for managing the emotions of those who dislike your growth. You are responsible only for protecting the virtues inside you. To strengthen your boundaries, try a simple exercise. Write down 3 non-negotiables, rules you will no longer break, no matter who asks or how uncomfortable it feels. These are not goals or aspirations. They are standards. Maybe it's protecting your mornings. Maybe it's limiting time with people who drain you. Maybe it's refusing to tolerate disrespect. Whatever they are, write them clearly and commit to them fully. Each time you honor a non-negotiable, you build a deeper sense of self-respect. In the end, setting boundaries is an act of love, not against others, but for yourself. It says, my peace matters, my values matter, my life matters. And once you begin to live this way, you will find that the right people respect you more, the wrong people drift away, and you finally feel aligned with the person you were meant to be. 4. The power of saying no. There is a moment in every person's life when the word no becomes more powerful than anything they could ever say yes to. Most people don't realize it, but every no you speak is a decision that shapes the direction of your life. It protects your energy, preserves your clarity, and strengthens your will. And yet, for many, the word feels heavy on the tongue, too sharp, too final, too uncomfortable. They fear it will disappoint others, create conflict, or make them seem unkind. But the truth is that learning to say no is one of the greatest acts of self-mastery a person can achieve. The Stoics understood this long before the modern world complicated everything. Marcus Aurelius warned, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." And part of being a good and disciplined person is knowing when to refuse what weakens you. Saying no is not an act of rejection, it is an act of alignment. It is choosing what contributes to your growth instead of scattering yourself across obligations that drain your spirit. To say no is to strengthen your willpower. Each time you refuse something that does not serve your values, you reinforce your ability to govern yourself. Willpower is a muscle, and no is one of its most powerful exercises. Every time you say it, you choose clarity over chaos, intention over impulse. You choose the life you want instead of the life others want from you. Seneca, in On the Shortness of Life, wrote that time is not just a resource, it is a form of mental and spiritual wealth. Most people treat their time as if it were infinite, giving it away freely, spilling it into the hands of anyone who asks. But to the Stoics, time is life itself. To give away your time without discernment is to give away your life without respect. When someone asks for your time, they are not asking for a moment. They are asking for a piece of your existence. Saying no, therefore, becomes a matter of preserving your most sacred resource. There are 3 types of yes that slowly exhaust a person from the inside out. The first is the yes spoken out of fear, the fear of disappointing someone, the fear of losing approval, the fear of not being liked. This kind of yes enslaves you to the expectations of others. The second is the yes spoken out of guilt, the belief that your time, your energy, or your attention belongs to everyone but you. This yes slowly erodes your self-worth. The third is the yes spoken from habit, automatic, unconscious, thoughtless. You say yes simply because you always have, and these habitual yeses become invisible traps, pulling you into commitments you never wanted in the first place. When you start saying no to these 3 types of yes, something extraordinary happens. Your mind becomes lighter. Your days become clearer. You begin to see your priorities with sharp focus. You discover that most of the things you once agreed to were never truly yours to carry. You begin living a life by design instead of by obligation. But saying no requires courage. It takes courage to stand firm when others expect compliance. It takes courage to disappoint someone when your whole life you've been taught to please. It takes courage to listen to your inner voice instead of the noise around you. The Stoics saw courage not as heroism in battle, but as the willingness to act according to virtue, even when it is uncomfortable. Every time you say no to something that conflicts with your values, you practice this kind of courage. The world will not applaud your boundaries. It will not congratulate you for choosing rest, clarity, or purpose. But the quiet reward is far more powerful. You begin to feel your life returning to you. Your energy, once scattered, becomes concentrated. Your time, once consumed, becomes meaningful. Your mind, once overwhelmed, becomes still. Saying no is not rejection, it is reclamation. To build this skill, try a Stoic-inspired exercise known as the 24-hour decision rule. When someone asks you for time, a favor, or a commitment, give yourself 24 hours before answering. This pause does two things. It prevents impulsive yeses, and it gives you space to evaluate whether the request aligns with your priorities. Ask yourself, will this strengthen me or drain me? Is this a step toward the life I want or a detour away from it? Am I saying yes because I choose to or because I feel pressured to? If the answer reveals that the commitment distracts from your values, your rest, or your purpose, the answer is no, and it must be spoken without apology. Over time, this practice turns the word no into something calm and natural. You no longer say it with tension or fear. You say it with clarity, and clarity is one of the highest forms of strength. The more you practice saying no, the more you understand that people's reactions do not define your responsibility. Some will respect your boundaries, others may not, but their discomfort does not mean your decision is wrong. A person who cares for you will accept your limits. A person who only benefits from your compliance will resist them. Either way, your path becomes clearer. In the end, the power of saying no is the power to shape the life you actually want. It is the ability to protect your time, your energy, and your peace from the endless demands of the world. It is a declaration that your life is yours, not a canvas for others to paint their desires on. A single word can change everything. No is not the end of something, it is the beginning of freedom. 5. Letting go of people who don't value you. There comes a point in life where you must face a truth that the Stoics understood with absolute clarity. Not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay, and not everyone who stays is meant to be carried with you into the next chapter. The world is constantly shifting, and so are people. Clinging to those who no longer value you is not an act of loyalty, it is an act of self-abandonment. Stoicism teaches the principle of impermanence, not as something tragic, but as something natural. Everything changes. People evolve, relationships fade, intentions shift, and even the closest bonds can loosen with time. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning that loss and change are woven into the fabric of existence. When you resist this truth, you suffer. When you accept it, you become free. Much of our suffering that comes not from people themselves, but from our attachment to who we want them to be. Attachment, in the Stoic sense, is the mental habit of clinging to an illusion, expecting permanence from something temporary, expecting consistency from someone unstable, expecting depth from someone shallow. It is the belief that holding on harder will make someone value you more, but attachment blinds you. It makes you ignore reality and fall in love with potential rather than truth. And potential is a dangerous thing. It allows you to justify disrespect, explain away neglect, and tolerate behavior that erodes your dignity. The Stoics urge us to observe actions, not fantasies. A person's behavior reveals their priorities with ruthless honesty. If someone values you, you will feel it. If they don't, you will feel that too, no matter how much you try to reinterpret their silence, their inconsistency, or their avoidance. Looking at someone's potential keeps you trapped in a version of the past that no longer exists. Looking at their actions sets you free. When someone does not value you, it is not an indictment of your worth. It is information. And information is a gift. It teaches you where not to invest your time, your heart, and your energy. It teaches you where your self-respect must rise to the surface. To continue chasing someone who ignores you is to teach your mind that you do not matter. To constantly excuse someone's behavior is to train yourself to accept less. To stay where you are not valued is to abandon the very self-love you are trying to build. Letting go, therefore, is not a punishment to the other person. It is an act of justice toward yourself. In Stoicism, letting go is also a way of honoring the logos, the natural order of things. Everything in nature moves in cycles: beginnings, endings, growth, decay. Nothing is meant to stay forever in the same form. When you cling to someone who has already left emotionally or spiritually, you go against the natural flow. You trap yourself in resistance. But when you release them, you return to alignment with the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. Letting go is simply stepping back into harmony. And yet, this act is often painful. Not because the person had irreplaceable qualities, but because they represented a hope, a version of connection you once believed in. You mourn not the person, but the possibility, the life you imagined with them, the moments that never came. But even this sorrow is a sign of your humanity, not your weakness. Letting go is not about severing emotion. It is about accepting reality with courage. The real turning point happens when you realize that holding on does not preserve the relationship. It only preserves your suffering. The moment you stop fighting for someone who isn't fighting for you, you reclaim a part of yourself that you didn't notice was slipping away. Your energy returns, your clarity returns, your dignity returns, and in their place, self-respect grows. Letting go does not always require confrontation. Sometimes it is quiet, sometimes it is internal, sometimes it is simply choosing not to chase, not to argue, not to seek closure from someone who cannot provide it. Closure is a gift you give yourself when you decide that peace matters more than explanations. But letting go also requires identifying the emotional anchors that keep you tied to the wrong people. These anchors take many forms: nostalgia, hope, guilt, habit, fantasy, fear of loneliness, or the belief that you will never find better. Each anchor keeps you bound to a version of the past. To move forward, you must release them deliberately. Try a simple Stoic exercise. Identify 3 emotional anchors that keep you attached to someone who does not value you. Write them down clearly, then write 1 sentence under each anchor. This no longer serves my peace. The purpose is not to erase your feelings, but to reclaim your authority over them. When you name the things that hold you, you weaken their power. As you release these anchors, you begin to notice something profound. Your sense of self becomes stronger. You no longer bend to earn affection. You no longer shrink to avoid rejection. You no longer chase what does not grow you. Letting go becomes an act of returning to yourself, a homecoming. Some people are meant to be lessons, not companions. Some are meant to be memories, not futures. And some are meant to be left exactly where they drifted away. When you finally let go, you make space for a new kind of relationship. One built not on desperation or longing, but on mutual respect, presence, and truth. And the most important truth of all, you deserve someone who values you effortlessly. But you must value yourself enough to walk away from those who do not. Before we move forward, take a moment to breathe and recognize something important. Every chapter you've walked through so far is not just knowledge, it's training. Training for the mind, for the heart, and for the person you are becoming. If these lessons resonate with you, if they're helping you see yourself more clearly and move through life with a calmer, stronger presence, then continue this journey with intention. Subscribe to True Stoic Way, a place built for those who want to rise through discipline, clarity, and inner mastery. Each lesson we explore is designed to sharpen your mind, strengthen your character, and guide you back to yourself. Because where we're heading next is one of the most important battles you will ever face. Not against the world, not against other people, but against the voice inside you that doubts, criticizes, and holds you back. Let's continue. 6. Silencing your inner critic. There is a voice inside every person that speaks long before reason has a chance to whisper. It comments, it corrects, it criticizes. Sometimes it is quiet, sometimes it is relentless, and often its words cut deeper than anything spoken by another human being. This voice is the inner critic, the echo of past judgments, old fears, and conditioning you never agreed to but somehow absorbed. It speaks with the tone of a parent who was too harsh, a teacher who doubted you, a partner who belittled you, or a younger version of yourself who learned to survive by expecting the worst. Yet the Stoics taught something powerful. Thoughts are not truths. They are impressions, shadows passing through the mind, shaped by memory, emotion, and habit. They have no authority unless you grant it to them. Marcus Aurelius wrote constantly to remind himself of this fact, observing his thoughts as if they belonged to someone else. He understood that the mind generates stories that do not always reflect reality. The mistake is not in having the thought. The mistake is believing it. To silence the inner critic, you must first create distance between yourself and the voice. This distance is not emotional detachment. It is clarity. It is the ability to step back and observe your thoughts instead of being trapped inside them. When you create cognitive distance, you stop reacting automatically. You stop assuming the voice is right. You begin to see the thought like a cloud crossing the sky, present, visible, but not permanent. Most people never question their inner critic because they assume its authority. They hear, "I'm not good enough," and treat it as fact. They hear, "You'll fail," and respond with fear. They hear, "You're behind," and panic. But the Stoic approach is simple and revolutionary. Challenge the thought. Do not accept it blindly. Do not surrender to it instantly. Hold it up to the light of reason. There are 4 questions the Stoics would ask when confronted with a harsh inner judgment. The first, is this thought true? Not theoretically, not emotionally, factually. The critic often speaks in exaggerations, absolutes, and distortions. When you ask whether it is objectively true, most accusations crumble. The second, is this thought useful? A thought may feel powerful, but if it weakens your resolve, clouds your mind, or destroys your spirit, it does not deserve your attention. The third, does this thought align with my values? Self-criticism often reflects the values of others, society, family, or culture, rather than your own. When you examine whether the thought aligns with the person you are striving to be, you regain authority over your inner world. The fourth, what would I say to someone I love if they had this thought? You will find that your words become gentler, clearer, and more rational. This reveals the truth. The critic is not wisdom, it is conditioning. Once you challenge your inner critic, its power fades. But silence cannot exist in a vacuum. You must replace the critic with a wiser inner voice, not a cheerleader, not an ego-driven fantasy, but an inner coach. The inner coach is firm but not cruel, honest but not destructive, disciplined but not punishing. The coach holds you to a standard without tearing you down. It says, you can do better, not you're worthless. It says, try again, not you're a failure. This shift changes everything. The transition from inner critic to inner coach is one of the most profound forms of self-love. It does not remove accountability, it refines it. It gives you motivation without shame, direction without fear, discipline without self-hatred. And discipline, when paired with compassion, strengthens you rather than breaking you. But to make this shift permanent, you must train your mind deliberately. Start by writing down 10 critical thoughts you often say to yourself. The quiet accusations, the subtle doubts, the repetitive fears. Once written, transform each one into a Stoic version of the thought, clear, rational, constructive. For example, I always mess things up becomes I've made mistakes, but I am learning. I'm not good enough becomes I'm still becoming the person I want to be. I'll fail again becomes results are outside my control, effort is not. This exercise is not about forced positivity, it is about truth. Stoicism is not optimism or denial. It is accuracy. When you correct a distorted thought, you are not comforting yourself. You are seeing reality more clearly. Over time, as you practice this reframing, you will notice a change. The critic appears less frequently. When it does appear, its voice is weaker. It no longer dictates your choices. It no longer hijacks your emotions. The silence between its words grows, and in that silence, you hear something new, your own strength. Silencing your inner critic does not mean erasing it. The critic is a part of you, a part shaped by survival, fear, and experience. But it does mean giving it a new role, not a dictator, but a messenger. A signal that reminds you where healing is needed, a voice you listen to with discernment rather than obedience. And eventually you begin to see that the critic was never your enemy. It was a confused guardian and protecting you in the only way it knew. With wisdom, you guide it into its proper place. You teach it that growth is not danger, that trying is not risk, that becoming is not something to fear. What remains is a quieter mind, a clearer heart, and a deeper sense of freedom. The freedom that comes from finally becoming an ally to yourself instead of an adversary. 7. Self-care is the root of self-worth. There is a quiet truth hidden beneath every moment of confidence, discipline, and inner peace. You cannot respect yourself if you constantly neglect yourself. Self-care, in the Stoic sense, is not indulgence or luxury. It is the ongoing act of maintaining the vessel through which you experience life, your body, your mind, and your soul. Without this maintenance, virtue cannot stand firm. Without this foundation, self-worth cannot grow. The Stoics believed that the body, mind, and soul must move together in harmony. They saw the body not as a temple to worship, nor as an obstacle to transcend, but as a necessary servant of the mind. A tired body weakens judgment. A neglected body dulls intention. A chaotic mind distorts perception. And a restless soul makes every burden feel heavier than it truly is. When one aspect is ignored, the whole system suffers. Caring for all three is an act of balance, not vanity. Seneca often wrote of how a person's thoughts become clearer after a long walk. Epictetus instructed his students to strengthen their bodies so they could endure the demands of reason. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to treat the body with moderation, not as something to pamper, but as something to prepare. The Stoics understood that self-care is not about pleasure, it is about readiness. If your body is the servant of the mind, you care for it so it can carry you toward your purpose without breaking beneath the weight. But in a world overwhelmed by consumerism, the concept of self-care has become distorted. People believe it means expensive rituals, elaborate routines, and endless attempts to treat themselves. Yet the Stoic approach is the opposite: simplicity. Self-care is not about what looks impressive on the outside. It is about what strengthens you on the inside. When stripped to its essence, there are only 5 things that matter. First, rest. Not laziness, but genuine recovery. Going to bed early, allowing the mind and body to reset, protecting your sleep as fiercely as you protect your goals. A tired person cannot think clearly, decide wisely, or act with discipline. Second, nourishment. Eating in a way that supports your well-being instead of numbing emotion or feeding impulse. Food is not an escape, it is fuel. Third, movement. You do not need to master athleticism, but the body must be challenged, stretched, strengthened. Movement sharpens focus and clears emotional heaviness. Fourth, mental hygiene. What you consume, information, conversations, media, shapes your inner landscape. A disciplined mind begins with disciplined input. Fifth, stillness. Time away from noise, from distraction, from interruption. Stillness allows the mind to settle, the emotions to stabilize, and the soul to breathe. These 5 practices form the foundation of Stoic self-care. They cost nothing. They demand no performance. They require only consistency. The Stoics also understood the power of morning habits. A morning to them was not merely the beginning of a day, but the beginning of a mindset. Marcus Aurelius wrote with brutal honesty about rising from bed, the struggle between comfort and purpose. He reminded himself that he was born to do the work of a human being, to think, to act, to serve the greater good, not to lie in bed seeking warmth. This was his morning ritual, aligning intention before action. A Stoic morning does not need complexity. A few deliberate steps are enough to shape the entire day. Wake without rushing, breathe deeply, reflect on the responsibilities ahead. Ask yourself which virtues the day will require: patience, courage, discipline, kindness. Move your body even for a few minutes and choose one action that aligns with your highest values before the world interrupts you. A morning like this is not glamorous, but it is powerful. When you care for yourself, you tell your mind something important. I am worth the effort. Self-care becomes an expression of self-respect, a daily reminder that your well-being matters. A neglected person feels unworthy, not because they are unworthy, but because their actions continually send the message that their needs are insignificant. A cared-for person begins to stand taller, speak clearer, and move with greater certainty. Self-care also shapes the way the world treats you. People sense when someone values themselves. They sense the boundaries, the confidence, the quiet discipline. A person who neglects themselves often attracts relationships that reflect that neglect. A person who honors themselves attracts relationships built on respect. Your habits speak louder than your words. To bring Stoic self-care into your life, try creating a simple daily ritual. It does not need to be elaborate. In fact, the more minimal it is, the more sustainable it becomes. Start by choosing 3 practices: one for the body, one for the mind, and one for the soul. For example, move for 10 minutes. Read 1 page of something worthwhile. Sit in silence for 60 seconds. Do these consistently, without excuse, without negotiation. Let the ritual be a reminder that you are responsible for cultivating your own strength. Over time, this ritual becomes more than a routine. It becomes a promise, a commitment you make to yourself each morning, a declaration that no matter what happens around you, you will not abandon your well-being. And this commitment becomes the seed of self-worth, not the loud, boastful kind, but the quiet, unshakable kind that grows from living in alignment with your needs. Self-care is not about pampering. It is about preparation. It is about creating the physical strength, mental clarity, and emotional stability required to live with virtue. It is about treating yourself the way a disciplined leader treats their most trusted companion. Care for yourself and self-worth will follow. Neglect yourself and self-doubt will grow. The choice is quiet, but it shapes everything. 8. Enjoying your own company. There is a kind of peace that cannot be found in conversation, achievement, or companionship. A peace that exists only when you stand alone with yourself. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere is more peaceful than your own soul." He did not write it as poetry, but as observation. He knew that the quietest place in the world is not a temple, a mountain, or a distant retreat. It is the interior space where your thoughts settle, where your breath steadies, and where you encounter the most honest version of yourself. And yet, modern life has made solitude a rare experience. People fear it, avoid it, drown it with noise and distraction. They treat silence as a void and loneliness as a threat. The world has lulled us into believing that being alone means being unwanted, unsuccessful, or incomplete. But this belief does not come from truth. It comes from dependency, from the habit of seeking constant stimulation, constant validation, constant escape from one's own mind. The truth is that most people don't fear solitude. They fear meeting themselves without distraction. They fear the unresolved thoughts that surface when the noise stops. They fear the emotions they pushed aside. They fear the reality that they have built their identity around other people's attention. Solitude doesn't create these fears. It only reveals them. But solitude in the Stoic sense is not an absence. It is a presence. It is not loneliness. It is intention. Loneliness is passive. It happens to you. Solitude is active. You choose it. Loneliness says, I am missing something. Solitude says, I am returning to myself. Loneliness is a hunger. Solitude is nourishment. To enjoy your own company is to free yourself from emotional dependency. When you rely on others to feel entertained, valuable, or whole, you are constantly at the mercy of their availability. You attach your sense of worth to their presence or their approval. You allow your moods to shift with the attention you receive. But when you learn to be with yourself, you rediscover that peace does not come from others. It comes from within. There is a kind of strength that grows only in solitude. When you sit alone, the world stops pulling at you. You begin to hear the subtle movements of your own mind. You see your patterns more clearly. You notice the thoughts that drive your actions. And with time, you learn to direct those thoughts instead of being driven by them. This is why solitude is one of the greatest training grounds for the Stoic mind. When you remove distraction, you confront yourself honestly. You learn whether your fears are real or imagined. You learn whether your desires are your own or borrowed from others. You learn the shape of your inner world, unfiltered by conversation or social expectation. Without solitude, you remain a stranger to yourself. To the Stoics, alone time was not a luxury. It was discipline. It was how they strengthened their thoughts before presenting them to the world. It was how they built resilience before life tested them. It was how they sharpened their values before anyone could challenge them. Alone time is not an escape, it is preparation. And it is also liberation. When you enjoy your own presence, you stop clinging to relationships out of fear. You stop chasing people who do not value you. You stop tolerating situations that drain you. Dependency dissolves. Clarity appears. You realize that company is a choice, not a necessity. That love is meaningful but not required for emotional survival. That peace is available even in silence. A person who enjoys solitude becomes far less vulnerable to manipulation. They are not swayed by loneliness. They are not controlled by attention. They are not tempted to settle for less than they deserve. They choose relationships out of genuine connection, not desperation. And the relationships they build that are stronger because of it, free from neediness, expectation, and emotional distortion. To experience the benefits of solitude, you must approach it intentionally. Not as punishment, not as isolation, but as practice. Try spending 60 minutes alone without distraction. No phone, no music, no entertainment. Sit somewhere quiet, walk slowly. Watch your thoughts arise and pass. Feel the discomfort if it comes. Then breathe and let it settle. With time, what felt uncomfortable becomes grounding. What felt empty becomes restorative. What felt strange becomes familiar. The goal is not to force stillness, but to allow it. To sit without needing stimulation. To observe without judgment. To listen without interruption. These moments teach you that you are capable of holding your own presence. That peace is something you can generate, not something you must chase. That your inner world contains more wisdom than you realized. And something remarkable happens when you learn to enjoy your own company. You stop fearing being alone. You stop filling your schedule out of insecurity. You stop clinging to people who bring chaos. You become anchored, steady, whole. Solitude becomes a refuge, not a threat, a sanctuary, not a reminder of lack, a training ground, not a punishment. To enjoy your own company is to reclaim the deepest freedom a person can have. The freedom to feel complete even in silence. Once you discover that peace inside you, no one can take it away. And every moment of solitude becomes a reminder of your strength. 9. Releasing the need for external validation. There is a kind of prison that requires no walls, no bars, and no guards. A prison built entirely from the opinions of other people. Many live their whole lives inside it without ever realizing they can walk free. They shape their choices around what others expect. They silence themselves to avoid disapproval. They chase praise as if it were oxygen. And they measure their worth through the shifting lens of public perception. But to the Stoics, nothing could be more dangerous than surrendering your peace to something you cannot control. The opinion of others lies entirely outside your sphere of influence. You cannot control how someone sees you, interprets you, misunderstands you, or judges you. You cannot govern their biases, their mood, their perception, their upbringing, or their projections. And yet, people spend enormous amounts of emotional energy trying to engineer the way others think of them. This is the essence of wasted life, tying your self-worth to forces that you can never command. Stoic freedom has a simple definition: not being shaken by the crowd. A free mind is one that does not rise with praise nor fall with criticism. It stays rooted in clarity, guided by values rather than vanity. It does not bend itself into shapes that please the world. It is not intoxicated by applause or wounded by rejection. It moves through life with the steady confidence of someone who knows that the only judgment that matters is the one grounded in reason and virtue. But the modern world has made external validation both more seductive and more addictive than ever. Every compliment gives you a quick surge of dopamine, a small chemical reward that makes you feel noticed, accepted, significant. For a moment, it feels like self-worth. But dopamine fades quickly, and when it does, it leaves behind a craving. You start seeking the next compliment, the next approval, the next sign that you matter. You become dependent on emotional hits that were never meant to sustain you. Praise becomes a drug, and people become the suppliers. To break free, you must first recognize the signs that you are living for others. The first sign is emotional instability. Your mood rises and falls based on what someone else says or doesn't say. A single negative comment ruins your day. A lack of response triggers doubt. A compliment makes you feel worthy again. This level of dependency means you've handed your emotions to strangers. The second sign is self-editing. You change how you speak, behave, dress, or express yourself because you fear judgment. You perform instead of existing. You present a version of yourself that feels safe rather than honest. Your life becomes a series of adjustments made to satisfy invisible critics. The third sign is postponement. You put your goals, dreams, or desires on hold because you worry they won't be approved or understood. You delay action until someone validates your choices. You hesitate not because you lack clarity, but because you lack permission. Recognizing these signs does not make you weak, it makes you aware. Awareness is the first step toward freedom. From here, you must build something deeper. Self-generated validation, the ability to create your own sense of worth independent of external reactions. This is the foundation of Stoic confidence. It means measuring your value by your effort, discipline, and integrity, rather than by the praise or criticism of others. It means asking yourself, did I act in alignment with my principles today? Instead of, did they like what I did today? A person who validates themselves does not need applause to stand tall. They do not need agreement to move forward. They do not collapse under criticism or chase affection to feel complete. Their worth comes from within because they have built it with intention. It is not borrowed, it is earned. To cultivate this inner validation, begin with a small but powerful practice. Release one societal expectation for 7 days. Choose something that the world insists you must care about. Appearance, status, productivity, social approval, constant availability, and deliberately let go of it. For 7 days, act without worrying how it will be perceived. Do the thing because it aligns with your values, not because it looks good. Observe the discomfort. Observe the fear. Then observe how nothing catastrophic happens when you stop living for the eyes of others. This exercise teaches you that most expectations are illusions, cages built by culture, not by truth. The moment you stop obeying them, they lose their power. As you continue this practice, validation slowly shifts inward. You learn to trust your own judgment. You learn to stand by your decisions without needing reassurance. You learn to move through the world with a quieter mind because you no longer carry the burden of maintaining an image. You begin to feel lighter, freer, more grounded, and the opinions of others become just that. Opinions, not commandments. When you stop chasing external approval, you reclaim your life. You reclaim your time because you no longer waste it managing impressions. You reclaim your voice because you no longer silence it to fit expectations. You reclaim your identity because you no longer shape it for acceptance. And most importantly, you reclaim your inner peace. The world will always have opinions. Let them. They do not belong to you. They do not define you. They do not command you. A person who validates themselves does not walk ahead of others or behind them. They walk beside themselves with clarity, with confidence, with freedom. 10. Forgiving yourself and moving forward. There is a weight that almost every person carries quietly, heavier than disappointment, sharper than rejection, and more persistent than fear. It is the weight of one's own mistakes. We replay them like old films we cannot stop watching. We judge ourselves by moments we can no longer change, and we punish ourselves long after the world has moved on. Yet the Stoics saw mistakes differently. To them, mistakes were not proof of failure. They were data, information, lessons that reveal where understanding was missing and where growth must occur. A mistake in the Stoic view is rarely the result of evil or bad character. Marcus Aurelius wrote that people act wrongly because they cannot tell good from bad, because they lack knowledge, clarity, or wisdom in the moment. And this applies not only to others, but also to ourselves. You did not choose poorly because you were broken. You chose poorly because you were still learning. Self-forgiveness begins with this recognition: error is not identity. It is a temporary lapse in understanding. But to forgive yourself, you must first understand responsibility through a Stoic lens. Responsibility does not mean drowning in guilt. It does not mean labeling yourself by your worst decision. It means acknowledging reality without distortion, neither exaggerating your fault nor dismissing it. Responsibility is clarity. It is saying, yes, I did this, without adding, and this defines me forever. When you take responsibility without self-condemnation, you reclaim your power. When you hold yourself accountable with honesty rather than shame, you open the door to transformation. Most people resist self-forgiveness because they believe holding on to guilt somehow pays the debt of the mistake. But guilt does nothing to repair the past. It does not make you wiser. It does not undo harm. It only freezes you in a moment that no longer exists. Forgiveness, on the other hand, releases the emotional tension so your energy can move forward. It redirects your mind toward growth rather than rumination. It frees the strength needed to act differently next time. Seneca wrote, every new beginning comes from the end of some other beginning. He meant that you cannot start again until you allow what came before to end. If you cling to your past errors, refusing to close the chapter, refusing to accept the lesson, you cannot step into a new version of yourself. Endings are uncomfortable, but they are necessary. Self-forgiveness is the act of ending an old self-judgment so that a new beginning can take its place. Forgiving yourself does not mean pretending the mistake didn't happen. It means refusing to let it define your identity or dictate your future. It means extracting the lesson and discarding the shame. Shame paralyzes. Lessons mobilize. One is a cage. The other is a compass. The process of forgiving yourself begins with understanding the context of your choices. No decision happens in a vacuum. You acted with the emotional tools, knowledge, and awareness you had at that time. When you see this clearly, compassion becomes possible. Not indulgence, compassion. Compassion says, I could not have acted better then, but I can act better now. That distinction transforms regret into wisdom. There is also a deeper truth. The version of you who made that mistake no longer exists. You are judging a past self using present wisdom. How can someone who has grown condemn the version of themselves who had not yet learned? It is like punishing a child for not knowing algebra. Maturity comes when you see your past self not as someone to blame, but as someone to guide. To move forward, you must also accept the emotional reality of the situation. Avoidance makes wounds deeper. Acknowledgement allows healing. Sit with the discomfort. Feel it fully. Let it speak. Then let it go. Holding on does not protect you from repeating the mistake. It only prevents you from growing beyond it. Forgiveness becomes even more powerful when you translate it into action. If your mistake hurts someone, make amends sincerely when possible. If the situation cannot be changed, commit to a different pattern moving forward. The Stoics believe that virtue is proven through behavior, not intention. Each improved action becomes evidence that you are no longer the person who made the old choice. Action becomes the bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. To deepen this process, try a simple reflective exercise. Choose one mistake that still haunts you and rewrite the story from 3 different perspectives. First, write it from your own viewpoint at the moment it happened. Imperfect, emotional, limited in understanding. Second, write it as an outside observer would. Neutral, factual, without moral judgment. Third, write it from the perspective of a wiser future self, compassionate, calm, focused on growth. This exercise reveals something beautiful. The story changes not because the event changes, but because your understanding expands. And with expanded understanding comes the space for forgiveness. As you practice, forgiveness becomes a form of liberation. The emotional chains loosen. The mind quiets. The heart steadies. You stop reliving what cannot be undone. You stop punishing yourself for not knowing what you know now. You stop carrying a burden that belongs to a chapter already closed. Forgiving yourself is not an act of weakness. It is an act of tremendous inner strength. It says, I will not abandon myself because of who I once was. It says, I choose growth over shame. It says, my future is not determined by my past. Once you embrace this truth, you become lighter, freer, and more capable of becoming the person you aspire to be. Every new beginning requires the ending of old guilt. Every step forward requires releasing the weight behind you. And every act of self-forgiveness is a declaration that you trust your capacity to grow. 11. Confidence through consistent action. There is a misconception many people carry, that confidence is a feeling that appears first and then action follows. They believe they must feel ready, feel strong, feel certain before they can take the next step. But the Stoics rejected this idea entirely. They understood that confidence is not born from emotion. It is built from behavior. Willpower is strengthened through action, not feeling. You do not act because you feel confident. You feel confident because you acted. In the Stoic view, confidence is simply accumulated evidence. Each time you follow through on a promise to yourself, you deposit proof into an internal account. Each time you take action despite discomfort, you add another layer to your foundation. And over time, these small actions build into a kind of steady, quiet certainty. The confidence that you can rely on yourself, that you can endure difficulty, that you can move forward no matter the obstacles. This is why the smallest actions often matter more than the biggest emotions. Emotions are unstable. They shift with sleep, stress, hunger, weather, memory, hormones, and circumstance. If your confidence depends on feeling a certain way, it will crumble the moment your mood changes. But action is stable. Action is choice. Action does not require you to feel powerful, only to do what aligns with your values. A small action done consistently builds more confidence than a burst of motivation that fades after a day. Most people get trapped not by reality, but by the fear of being judged. They imagine the eyes of others watching their progress, evaluating their steps, criticizing their attempts. They believe the world is paying far more attention to their failures than it actually is. But the Stoics remind us that other people's judgments lie completely outside our control, and therefore they are irrelevant to our growth. Marcus Aurelius advised himself to ignore the crowd and focus only on virtue. He knew that the opinions of others can neither raise nor diminish your true worth. The fear of judgment dissolves when you realize how little people actually notice. Everyone is preoccupied with their own problems, their own insecurities, their own battles. They are too busy thinking about themselves to think deeply about you. And even if someone does judge your efforts, their opinion carries no weight unless you choose to pick it up. Confidence grows in the space where courage overrides concern. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to act while fear is present. Every time you move forward despite uncertainty, you prove to yourself that fear cannot control you. And every small victory becomes evidence that shapes your identity into someone stronger, steadier, and more capable. This is where microdiscipline becomes transformative. Consistency is more powerful than intensity. A 10-minute practice done every day builds more confidence than a 2-hour effort done once a month. A single purposeful action taken each morning builds more identity than a burst of motivation taken once a year. Confidence grows by repetition, by showing up again and again, even when you don't feel like it, even when progress seems small. A person who practices micro-discipline begins to change in ways others cannot immediately see. Their posture shifts, their voice stabilizes, their decisions sharpen. They no longer negotiate with excuses. They no longer collapse under small setbacks. They become someone who trusts their own ability to follow through. and this trust becomes an unshakable source of confidence. To build this trust, start small, very small. Choose one action that aligns with the person you want to become. A daily walk, a page of reading, 10 quiet breaths, a moment of reflection, a simple stretch, a single completed task. Do it every day. Do it whether you feel motivated or not. Do it until it becomes part of you. Then expand. Add a second action, a third. Let the chain lengthen. Let the evidence accumulate. Transform yourself through repetition, not intensity. To support this process, create a 7-day, 14-day, and 30-day action board. Write down a small set of micro-disciplines, no more than 3, and commit to them fully. For 7 days, focus on consistency over perfection. For 14 days, observe how your identity begins to shift. For 30 days, watch how your confidence begins to crystallize into something steady and unmistakable. Your board might include actions such as wake up without snoozing, move your body for 5 minutes, read 1 page of something meaningful, drink water before checking your phone, spend 1 minute in silence. Write 1 sentence about your goals. These are not grand tasks, they are signals. Each action says, I am someone who shows up. The beauty of this approach is that confidence grows naturally, not through force, not through pretending, not through hype. It grows because your mind begins to trust that your actions are consistent. It grows because you have built evidence day by day that you can rely on yourself. And once you trust yourself, you no longer need the world to believe in you. You no longer need to wait for courage to arrive. You no longer need to feel ready. You simply act because action itself is the path to readiness. Confidence is not a gift. It is a craft. It is shaped through the hands of discipline, sharpened through small choices, and strengthened through repeated effort. Anyone can build it, not by waiting but by doing. The Stoics knew this well. A person who consistently acts in alignment with their values becomes unstoppable. They are not driven by emotion. They are guided by intention. They are not paralyzed by fear. They are anchored in purpose. And they are not dependent on praise. Their confidence is built from within. 12. Practicing gratitude for who you are. There is a quiet shift that happens inside a person when they stop chasing what they are missing and begin seeing what they already have. The Stoics called this shift gratitude, not the sentimental kind, not the dramatic kind, but the disciplined awareness of your present value. They understood that gratitude is not about listing blessings, it is about training the mind to recognize its own strength. Gratitude is clarity. It is seeing yourself without distortion, without shame, without the constant illusion of insufficiency. The modern mind is conditioned to notice what is lacking. It compares, measures, evaluates, and concludes that something is always missing. A better body, a better mom, a better past, a better future. This constant comparison creates a sense of emptiness, a belief that fulfillment lies somewhere else, sometime else, in someone else. But the Stoics warned that comparison is the root of unnecessary suffering. When you measure your life against another's, you ignore your own path. When you chase the image of who you think you should be, you forget to honor the person you already are. Inner abundance begins when you stop looking outward for justification. It is the awareness that you carry enough strength, enough wisdom, enough resilience to live with purpose. It is not arrogance, it is acknowledgement. Gratitude reveals that your worth is not something you must earn later. It is something that already exists here and now out beneath the layers of fear and doubt. To practice true gratitude, you must learn to see the 3 versions of yourself with honesty and compassion. First is the past self, the one who made mistakes, who lacked understanding, who acted out of fear or confusion. This version of you deserves recognition, not resentment. They were doing the best they could with the tools they had. Without them, you would not be who you are now. Gratitude for your past self means releasing judgment and acknowledging their effort, their survival, their learning. Second is the present self, the one who is navigating life today, imperfect and evolving. This version of you is carrying responsibilities, managing emotions, making decisions, and trying to stay aligned with your values. Gratitude for your present self means seeing the strength in your attempts, not just the flaws in your execution. It means honoring the progress you overlook because you are too close to see it. Third is the becoming self, the version of you who is not yet here, but who is slowly forming through your choices. This version holds your potential, your future virtues, your realized discipline. Gratitude for your becoming self means trusting the direction you are moving, even if the path feels slow. It means recognizing that growth takes time and that you are on the way. When you honor all three versions of yourself, you become whole. You stop fighting your past, dismissing your present, and doubting your future. Gratitude becomes the thread that connects your timeline into a story instead of a struggle. The power of gratitude is that it rewires the mind. A mind without gratitude searches constantly for what is wrong, the flaw in your appearance, the inadequacy in your achievements, the gap between you and others. But a mind trained in gratitude begins to see differently. It notices the strengths that were always there. It recognizes the resilience that hardship created. It remembers the moments you overcame, the lessons you endured, the character you built when no one was watching. Gratitude shifts the internal narrative from deficiency to growth, from lack to possibility. And something remarkable happens when gratitude becomes habitual. Comparison loses its grip. You stop measuring your worth against the lives of others. Their progress no longer threatens you. Their success no longer diminishes you. You begin to understand that every person's path is different, and your value is not measured on the same scale. Gratitude dissolves envy because it roots you in what is already enough. Still, gratitude must be practiced deliberately. It is not a feeling that appears when life is perfect. It is a discipline you cultivate, especially when life is difficult. The Stoics use reflection as their main tool, a daily returning to the truth of their own strength. To bring this into your life, try a simple practice known as the Stoic evening reflection. Each night, sit for a moment in stillness and ask yourself 3 questions. 1. What did I do today that aligned with my values? 2. What strength did I show that I had forgotten I possessed? 1. What part of myself can I appreciate, not for perfection, but for effort? Write your answers down, even if they seem small, even if they seem insignificant. Over time, you will see a pattern. You are more capable than you realize. You are more consistent than you give yourself credit for. You have more internal abundance than your fears allow you to acknowledge. This practice does not just improve your mood, it strengthens your identity. It teaches you to see yourself with accuracy rather than harshness. Gratitude becomes a lens that reveals your inner worth instead of magnifying your perceived flaws. And when you see yourself clearly, you begin to treat yourself differently, with more patience, more respect, more care. Gratitude, practiced consistently, becomes a foundation. It anchors you against the turbulence of life. When the world criticizes you, gratitude reminds you of your strengths. When progress feels slow, gratitude shows you the steps you've already taken. When doubt whispers that you are not enough, gratitude counters with evidence. You begin to walk differently, not with arrogance, but with peace, not with superiority, but with certainty, not seeking validation, but carrying quiet worth. Practicing gratitude for who you are does not mean ignoring your flaws. It means refusing to define yourself by them. It means seeing your humanity as a whole, imperfect, evolving, resilient, and worthy. Gratitude does not change your past or guarantee your future. It transforms your experience of the present. And that, the Stoics understood, is where happiness truly lives. There comes a moment after all the lessons, all the reflections, and all the quiet inner battles when you realize something profound. The relationship you build with yourself determines the quality of every other relationship in your life. The way you speak to yourself shapes the way you let others speak to you. The standards you set for your own behavior become the standards the world follows. And the strength you cultivate within becomes the shield that guards your peace. Self-love in the Stoic sense is not softness. It is not escape. It is not ego. It is alignment. The disciplined choice to treat yourself as someone worthy of respect, worthy of care, and worthy of protection. When you stop abandoning yourself, the world stops treating you like someone who can be abandoned. When you honor your needs, the world learns to honor them too. And when you value your inner world, the chaos outside can no longer shake you. You now carry the tools the Stoics held closest: clarity, discipline, boundaries, courage, forgiveness, consistency, solitude, and gratitude. These are not ideas to admire. They are practices to live, daily, quietly, relentlessly. And if you choose to continue this path, the path of building a stronger mind, a calmer spirit, and an unshakable inner fortress, then you do not walk it alone. Before we close, take a slow breath. Feel how much you have already grown. And if this journey resonates with something inside you, something ready to rise, something ready to become, then take one small step to stay connected to this work. Subscribe to True Stoic Way, not for entertainment, but for the discipline you're choosing, for the strength you're building, for the life you are shaping from the inside out. Every lesson here is created for one purpose: to help you return to yourself, stronger, clearer, and more grounded than you were before. This journey doesn't end here. It begins here. And now it's your turn to live it.